Good morning, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Again, it's Thursday, 14th, 2026 at 10:15 in the morning. We're back from a short 5-minute, 15-minute break. What's that do with our legislative council, Rick Sagel, to I think start walking through S71, 2.3, and let's see where we have agreement, where we have issues. So Rick, if you could start taking us through, that would be great.
So, good morning, Rick Sagel with the Office of Legislative Counsel. I have 3.3, which we had the walkthrough start on Friday, finished it yesterday. I still have the color coded version on the screen here. I have not updated the draft, so there's no changes from what we last went over. So I guess I would defer as to, I don't think I should read it again unless you want me to.
I think we need to rewrite.
So,
But
yeah, might need to.
we're looking at definitions. Affiliate definition.
Which is pretty standard.
So, and if there's questions, people let me know. If there's a definition that you're not sure of, or that you think needs to be changed, or speak up. Otherwise, if we don't hear anything, we're going to keep going through.
So we maybe just start from a base that the if stuff is not well, I guess if we do definitions, so a lot of the base that this was created off of was Connecticut 2022. And then so stuff that we've been kind of like adjusting in committee is Connecticut 2025 changes, the kids code alignments, the sales definite is data broker, and then there's some stuff from committee and so the stuff from that we've been like changing is generally highlighted, but something like affiliate, if we're like, I don't want to necessarily leave dead airspace of like nobody being sure where that came from as a base. That's Connecticut 2022. I guess it's just
Yeah, and that would be good if we're going through.
Yeah.
And let us know what the pieces that are not highlighted, are they Connecticut or are they something? I think, I'm assuming if they're not highlighted. That if they're not highlighted, they're Connecticut.
no, it's not necessarily true
Okay.
because we didn't highlight the change, like the last few versions. Rick highlighted the most recent changes.
So pieces that are not highlighted, just let us know if they're Connecticut or there's something.
And I think
That's the problem. Like if it's not high.
Michael, but I understand that, but that's what we're doing now. We're gonna identify everything that we're going through. If it's Connecticut, and if it's not, then we can have that conversation from where it came from. Okay? I understand what you were saying and what you said. But we're gonna identify those so that we all know. Okay,
Okay, so I am gonna have one change to affiliate, just technical, subdivision B, controls, just because the word controls is used in 1A. So that's just a technical change, so don't be surprised when you see the word controls added to draft 4 point, whatever it is.
John.
And so in thinking of something like a definition, subsequently of targeted advertising, we talk about the non-affiliated websites. The notion of a non-affiliated website is it's sort of the opposite of what an affiliate is.
And in this definition, we're only talking about how it applies in 1A. So I'm sorry, the word affiliate, sorry. I thought you were talking about controls. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When we get there, if you can remind me.
Yeah.
Shall I keep going on?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so while we're in the definitions here, the definition of authenticate talks about reasonable to determine the person who is they are for subdivisions 1 through 5, consumer rights, but not 6 and 7. 6 is opt out, 7 is profiling. Maybe I don't understand entirely whether it's probably just a.
No, let's see. So yeah,
No, it might need to just be A if we added rights. That's,
so
you could be right, there's a technical thing that we like added rights, so that needs. to
Yeah, and
be
I just
A.
didn't see 6
Yeah, yeah,
and 7.
yeah, that makes sense.
And they seem to be fairly important. And that you might need to authenticate.
so I'm
The definition of authenticate, 2415 DA 1 through 5, and Herb's wondering, there's.
so this does match. This does match the bill. If you go to page 28 on 3.3, subdivision 4, authentication of request. If a controller is unable to authenticate a request afforded under subdivisions A 1 through 5 of the section, this is not the same as using an agent. This is just the controller not being able to determine, is this Rep Olson? So, but if you want to expand that authentication to opt out and to
Yeah.
profiling,
Well, it's a question more than anything of whether a controller would need to authenticate who the consumer was in connection with opt-out and profiling rights. So maybe I don't know the answer to that, but
I don't either.
Why would they not be authenticating?
move the line and we'll probably hear from that.
Yep, I can note that the committee may want to make that just the entire consumer rights, that the controller
If they
use reasonable means to authenticate. Yep, okay. Okay, then we come, so moving on to biometric data. Any questions about that?
This is kids code.
Not Matt, Connecticut.
Oh, it's our kids code.
It's our kids code, yeah.
It
So
doesn't have to match kids code. I just want to be clear. I know you want to align definitions. I appreciate that. But I think it may be helpful for controllers to have the same definition, but you don't have to. Just want to make that very clear.
that's something that we need to make a determination. Are we going, do we align our kids code definitions in S71?
I prefer to align myself. I think it just makes life easier for everyone.
Others?
With alignment.
And there might be some definition that isn't appropriate, but it seems like it's a
I
no-brainer.
can,
That's why.
and if there is, I'm gonna hear about it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, if there's a definition that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah.
But I think if we talked about alignment when we come in, we think they were all appropriate, but
Just to give to some context, so when we were, so the definitions between when the data broker bill, the kids code bill, and this were all created at the same time, the definitions across all of them were matching for consistency and alignment. And so the definitions in kids code were also shared with, this draft. And also, there's been some pushback of like, these are kids specific type of definition type things, but those definitions are also copied from other states' comprehensive privacy bills, largely, usually it's something like either Connecticut or Oregon, things like that. So that's also something to dive into if people have a surface level, like, should this align? We should also make sure that it's like, if the pushback is it's not, doesn't exist in another comprehensive law, that's not usually the case, so.
so I guess, I mean, for me, what are the drawbacks if we just use what Connecticut 2025 has for section biometric data?
I think the main difference is you don't have what it includes. The iris, retina scans, fingerprints. I think Connecticut is basically just that intro paragraph. Roughly, I don't have it in front of me, but my recollection is that it just doesn't have including these things as examples of biometric data.
And does that be a job? Is that it? Could that be an issue for a business? That's. Does it make a difference?
Would that be addressed in any subsequent rulemaking specifics?
That too, but.
Now, you're saying when it says including, that's not just those items.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Which I think Connecticut also does not, there's no list. So is that more vague? I don't know.
I think we talked yesterday about maybe providing some examples and possible advantages to that, and we're kind of doing that here.
So, so. I think that leaving it open is, which it does, and saying it's including this, which we already know that biometric data is iris, retina scan. You know, that is biometrics, we already know that. So I don't have a problem with the language in there.
Business associate is cross-reference, child is a cross-reference to COPA. Collect. It's not, I don't know if Connecticut has collect defined. Again, I can't remember everything that each state has done, but that last phrase after the comma is specific to Vermont.
So collect, as we were starting to edit this, started as the match to kids code. The sentence in green is when the words process and collect get separated for things like the California data minimization standard. This is, my understanding is the green is something that industry lobbyists have brought up as a concern. I am happy to, if we, I know the origination of this. I don't necessarily want to call it out on the record, but would love to invite a lobbyist to represent their clients on this if it is helpful, I guess. And I can say it on the record if we want to build one on the spot. But this is a big tech trying to not get in the way of their business operations.
I mean, I would think it's helpful clarification for business, you know, maybe it goes without saying, but it makes it explicit that the dealings between the controller and the processor are probably quite linked a lot. And it just says, well, by the way, it doesn't, I mean, I agree, it'd be nice to hear from someone, but it seems to be something that would be helpful.
Well, yeah, I think it really lets you know. Or lets the business know if they're the controller. What they are gathering is data, but. When you're working between that themselves and. The processor and subcontractors do, that's not collecting as far as data collecting goes. Yes, I read it, which makes sense. Michael,
So you're saying that big tech doesn't like this? Wanted this?
Wanted this.
I want to know why. I
Okay.
definitely want to know why, because when I look at this, I think of like the 501(c)(3)s and the 501(c)(4)s,
that's fine.
processors. And
So we need MMR and Microsoft and the Business Software Alliance to testify.
there's a reason why I said that. Because it's true.
I agree. I want to understand the collect definition.
Okay, then going down to consent.
What are we doing on collect? We're gonna try to hear more information.
here,
Sorry, I was referring to green.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that's
okay,
the
yeah.
Business
I just
Software
wanna
Alliance and
make
Microsoft, and this has been from discussions
Okay.
in other states, so.
Okay.
I
Thank
just
you.
texted Matt and said we need to have
Sorry,
him
I
testify
thought we
with
were for a
Microsoft
minute
and
talking
TSA.
about something else.
Jump in there.
And then make sure that-
Okay.
Back to that, including by a statement or by a clear affirmative action, does that phrase require then that there be that there be one of the two? That
No.
Okay.
No, it's kind of like biometric data, right? That includes fingerprints.
Mhm.
This consent can include a statement or a clear affirmative action. But it's the top two lines that are important. Any freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous indication of their wishes, which can be by a statement.
This is,
Grace, California.
Catherine.
Narrowly defined particular purpose it feels restrictive.
Mhm.
What happens if it's less restrictive?
I think what the definition is trying to avoid is not a dark pattern necessarily, but the bill would require the consumer to really know what they're consenting to. And I can't tell you in the real world what that looks like, but the definition is really trying to make that clear to businesses that the consent should be specific to something specific.
And so we had a different consent in there before. If we have B, that's sort of what it doesn't include
Yes, consent. I can't remember.
or something.
Consent
We've
means.
had a lot of
clear-
drafts.
Oh, it's like 15 different ones.
Sorry, Matt. Who represents Microsoft? I'm looking it up. Oh, maybe they're not.
good, so. Just, or did you have anything you wanted to,
On consent?
down?
If you go down to what it does not include, maybe helpful.
Yeah.
It's not a general broad terms of use. That lumps in personal data processing with other unrelated information. And then you have the dark patterns. So
So we got S71 as passed. It says may include written statement, including by electronic means or any other unambiguous affirmative action. And it does not include, do we need to go, no, we need to go into does not include because that has not changed. So that's the difference between, scroll back up.
Yeah, so what I was zeroing in on is, the California definition. I think it's fine as well as it goes, but the prior definition we were working from, I think, at least in 2.3, talked about clear affirmative act. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's the same meaning as specific, informed, unambiguous indication of wishes. But, just structurally, and, that's dropped, including by statement. So if you have a clear affirmative action, yeah, that's consent. But it could be by some other means, and I'm trying to, maybe it doesn't make any material difference, but I just noted that. Because clear affirmative action, I think we've used in some other bills that we got, I think genetic privacy. But perhaps it's not, maybe it's a difference that is not material. But Jeremy? But I can't articulate whether that makes it stronger or weaker. So I'll drop it for them.
This is, this is Connecticut 2023 also.
Well, no, so consent, I was just gonna say, I was waiting for this to clear. So when I read the second part of consent, consent means a clear affirmative act signifying a consumer's freely given, specific, informed, unambiguous agreement to allow processing of personal data relating to the customer. I suspect it's the indication of the customer's wishes, which He sounds a little funny.
Yeah, but I don't have any problem with that. It should be indicative of the concerns issue.
I didn't wish it was a problem.
What's that?
I wish it wasn't a problem.
I think I'm going down a rabbit
Maybe
hole.
will, electronic consumer. That'd be better.
I don't understand the purpose of indication of the customer's wishes.
Well, maybe it covers processing and collecting
Or it's making it so that
or selling,
it's.
right? It's like covering all of that together. So you don't have to have it separate.
I just don't understand the difference between 2.3's definition, which was fairly concise and had the magic words for me, clear affirmative act. And I'm not sure that I understand. I'm comfortable with the 2.3 definition. I'm just not sure what the difference, what sort of meaningful difference there is between the California and the 2.3.
Well, you're looking at 2.3. I'm
I am.
looking at S71 as passed.
I don't have that document. It's in here.
Yeah, well, no, I'll look at S71 as passed. You can look at 2.3.
Let me get it. Let me get it.
So I'm just saying that in 2.3, or not 2.3, oh my goodness.
There we go.
In as passed, it says means a clear affirmative act signifying, which has that clear affirmative act that you want, signifying customers freely given specific, informed, and unambiguous agreement to allow the processing of personal data relating to the customer.
It's also 2.3.
That's exactly how it says 2.3.
I think so.
So it's the wishes that,
Well, I don't know that it's really a difference, right?
What do
Well, I
you think
think
from a legal perspective?
why is it wishes? Because I mean, I guess here's the thing, when you click yes on the terms of agreement, you may wish that your data was not going there, right? But the fact is you're signing it. All good.
You want to say decision, unambiguous indication of the consumer's decision?
Or if the desire is a clear affirmative act, we can leave it back to where it was passed as a Senate. So tell me why it's so important to have the additional language.
Sorry, I'm still trying to get BSA. They're not represented in this building.
I'm okay with using the one at 71.
And 2.3.
Wait,
It's both the same, so it's all good.
I'm just one
But
person.
the statement is S71, that's fast. But no, I mean, what is the reason for the change in this? And this is, this whole process, this is what I'm concerned about. So small little changes that have huge effects, but we don't realize that because I mean, believe me, I can modify a bill to have a huge effect and you not know that it's gonna have a huge effect. And I was like, oh, it's just a change. It's not. I would not trust in your abilities, sir.
We don't.
Done it multiple times.
Trust me, I'd be
Let's
looking.
get back to the. So we really gotta hone in on what we want. So do we wanna go back to what was in 2.3 or? What was in the original 7?
71.
Can I suggest that we wait to make changes like this until we go to the place where it's actually implemented, which is in the data minimization piece?
So
Mark that, Rick.
I would prefer to go to the reference now, since we're talking about it now,
Sure.
and then go back. I mean, yeah, that's me personally.
Definitions.
Right. If we're defining and we need to see the impact of it, we should know what the impact is. So while we're on the topic.
I don't care what order, you just numbered pages, as long as we get to it.
Works for me.
So we're on page 31. This is the data minimization, duties and controllers. area. So we're looking for the word consent. First time it exists here looks to be subdivision 1B. A controller shall obtain the consumer's consent in accordance with the subchapter before processing the consumer's personal data for any purpose that does not meet the requirements set forth in A, which is up here. The reasonable and necessary collecting, excuse me. And further provided that the methods for obtaining consent under the subdivision shall be easy to understand, offer simple choice, not use language or interactive elements that are confusing to the consumer, not use choice architecture that impairs or interferes with the consumer's ability to make a choice and be easy to execute. That's one example of consent.
Where is the data minimization in 71? As passed?
This entire thing.
Oh, he's talking about, I don't have the as passed. Well, I mean,
Oh.
it's same, so it's still 20, it's the duties of controller, same section heading. I don't remember the section number in that version. But if you find duties of controller, you want me to keep going?
Duties of controller.
Thanks for the clarification. But this
It's
issue,
controller's duties. It's
the
on.
consent is also about allowing the consumer in the company to facilitate the transaction. That, like, that the consumer has to consent to their information being used.
As long as, so normally, so what this is doing here, 1AI is you can collect data, process data, if it's reasonably necessary and proportionate to achieve, what that transaction right is, or what that, transaction is a good word for it, not necessarily payment, just transaction. So however, anything else that does not meet that reasonable necessary would need consent of the consumer. That's kind of the general principle of this. And there's different ways of wording that, right? But that's the principle.
Okay. So so wishes in that definition of consent is just declaring and pointing to the consumer's desire to have that transaction take place and.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a fair way to put it, yes. How far?
All the way to the beginning of it. So the controller shall limit the collection of personal data to the adequate, relevant, and reasonably necessary in relation to the purposes of which the data is processed as disclosed to the consumer. So is the section in as passed doing the same thing as this? And if it is, why are we changing it? That's the issue that I have, is that we're making small modifications. Yeah.
So anything that was pulled from California was done because the purpose is to make it more clear to Vermont businesses. Because that language was providing more framework around that. And if you feel like it's too much framework or the framework is not more clear, that's.
Yeah, and I think, I apologize.
Oh.
I think the issue is that businesses have spoken that they don't want to pull in California. Not big tech, talking about our small businesses.
But on the same lines, businesses have had several complaints that our laws are not clear enough. I think this was an attempt to do that.
It's not helpful, it's not helpful, right?
Exactly. If you don't think it's helpful, we should take it out.
Oh, that's okay. I think also, so if we're looking at as passed by Senate, that is largely understood as not being data minimization. And so one of the kind of fundamental things that we have worked on over the last couple of years, and also with the working group that was during this session and what we've been discussing here and what we've been hearing from witnesses both nationally and as well as Vermonters, as well as regulators, is that if you're going to remove things like the private right of action, if you're going to like make it solely enforced by the AG can't help basically represent everybody, and businesses are without data minimization able to do a lot of things that consumers may have no large, like I would say it's safe to say like generally don't know what is being collected and things like that. So we need to have a strong data minimization protocol in place in the absence of having basically a strong enforcement mechanism. And we had a really strict data minimization protocol that matched Maryland in the previous draft. And from hearing from the business community and concerns that was too strict, that is why we decided to look at different minimization standards. And what we have heard from them and from others that have testified is to look at something that is an established minimization and that is that businesses can understand. And there was offered up Connecticut 2025, which, like I said, originally they broke that. Their intent was to match California and and they can't match California because there's constant rulemaking and regulations. So their intent was to try to get as close as they could to what businesses understand and how they comply with California. And so our language is also trying to the intent is to, in this at least, like obviously open for committee, but like the intent of this language is to do the same thing Connecticut was striving to achieve, which is to get closer to what California's standard is, which is generally nationally is the kind of the model that majority of businesses that are acting outside of their own state, they generally have to look at California. And there's lots of guidance of how to abide by this.
This will affect businesses in Vermont that may only do.
It's probably actually already affecting businesses in Vermont. If they are doing any type of business outside of Vermont, they're generally probably looking and maybe already complying with California.
And it's very possible that they may not be doing business outside of Vermont. And so we're adding it in.
If they're not doing business outside of Vermont, then they have no privacy. It's safe to say like they have no regulated, expected responsibilities for data protection and data privacy standards, hard stop. So yes, if a business that's only doing business in Vermont that actually is collecting people's data, they have no expectations or requirements right now, largely. Like their sectoral stuff, obviously, like HIPAA and things like that, but they probably are starting from ground zero for some of the businesses will be starting from ground zero, and others will already be complying with this. There's a range, obviously, in the middle. And that's true of any law. That's true of our data breach laws, true of insurance laws.
So going back to the way he framed it, I think the California provisions are intended to be helpful, provide better guidance. I'm going from the controller duty issue back to the consent definition, because I think they're actually two separate issues. And in the consent issue, the question is, I think, whether it's helpful or not. And the only we haven't heard from people. I will say that I do know the consent provision in 2.3. I understand that, and I'm comfortable with that. I just don't know whether the changes to consent definition in 3.3 are helpful. And if it's not helpful, I don't think we need to do it. I would also keep in mind that I'm counting a lot on the AG to adopt some rules to hopefully clarify things that we probably don't know whether they need clarifying or not. So basically, I'd like to hear from business about whether it's helpful or not, but I'm definitely okay with the 2.3 definition.
Which is the same as S7,
So, all right. So in that case, if you're okay with that, I would prefer it. Where would everybody else be?
Well, I would like to, it's just, the point I get from the way I frame it is the California definition helpful to business? And if it is, I'd be okay with that. But if not, or they're not sure, or whatever, I'm okay with 2.3.
There is a legal concept called informed consent. Does that help with this at all?
It's usually used in the medical context, you know, when you sign some type of paperwork that you understand the risk of the surgery or whatever it is, right? So in this, you would want to define, I think, informed consent, and you're going back to not ground zero, back to whatever the phrase is. My brain is mush, whatever that phrase is, you kind of come back to, okay, what is that? What is informed consent? So you can use that phrase and it's got some connotation, but I think because we're picking apart every word here, I think you're going to want to define that too.
Is there in consumer law, is there any sort of analogous concept?
Of informed consent in consumer law.
Contract law, actually.
Oh.
I think is what I'm thinking of.
In contract law. I mean, when you sign a contract, you know, you're agreeing to the terms of the contract. It's assumed you read it, and then even if you didn't read it, right, you've consented to whatever you've signed to. I'm not thinking clearly of a contractual informed consent term, except that when you sign something that says you know, like again, going back to the medical context where you are informed of the risks of the procedure and you sign that form that says as such. Sure.
Changing, if we go back to the 71 or 2.3 on consent, does it make any changes to this piece that we're looking at now?
I'd have to check that, you know, I'd have to double check everything, but I would not think so. I think may also say this, if we're gonna go through the bill and compare every state to what I've never done this. I just want to make that clear. This is very unique, what we're doing here. Not that it's wrong. You guys can do whatever you want, but I think if we're taking every paragraph and comparing it, well, Connecticut did this, well, S71 did this, that's really strange. And it's going to make this a very long process. And that's what you guys want to do, I understand, but this is going to be a lot of work. And I'm not going to be prepared every time I walk through the bill to say, oh yeah, S71 2.3 did this or Connecticut did that. So I'm telling you all, I can't maybe do that and give you guys the best information. Offline, you are welcome to compare this document to S71 as Red Buden's doing. That's great. I'm not going to be always able to say like, yeah, that's the way we did it. And that was, so I just want to remark how this is not a normal way to mark up a bill, is comparing to every state that has done something. And again, I want to make that clear, and we're running low on time. So I also want to make that clear. That's it. I appreciate the process. I appreciate the process, but you know,
You have consent.
I want to reflect what the committee wants, but that's if the committee wants every state to be involved, it's just going to be messy. Which to some extent this bill has, right, pieces from other states, and that's part of why it's messy. But we don't always criticize each section based on which state did it. I think a comparable, if you want to compare it to S71 as passed by the Senate, right? That's the comparison. You have a proposal from the Senate, it passed the Senate. So you have a proposal of amendment that's going to go back to the Senate. And when I take this over to the other committee in the Senate, they're going to want me to compare as passed by the Senate to what you all have done. So something to think about too, is that's going to be the side by side. And it's going to look pretty different as draft 3.3 is in front of you. So again, something else to think about.
We're back to consent. You want to do 2.3 or market as possibly bringing that back to 2.3.
So an informal motion or?
Yeah, just
Well, like I said, I'm okay with the definition in 2.3 and as passed by the Senate. This business comes to us and say, hey, you know, we like that better. If, in the absence of that information, I'd be okay with 2.0.
I just, if we are, I guess it depends on what we end up doing with data min. If we are updating data min to reflect California, then their consent, I'd rather match their consent. So those things are in alignment with each other. And if
Oh,
we're.
that might be a different issue. I was
Yeah.
kind of seeing the two as separate issues.
They're not, yeah, they're
Let's
not.
mark it.
Yeah.
And then when we get to this section, and we make a decision of where we're gonna go with that minimization, then we can rectify all that. Okay.
We have 2 minutes. How do you want to?
Go as far as we can and get to you.
So I'll go back up to the definitions. Since we took a detour. So going to consumer. Any questions about the consumer definition? Consumer health data. Consumer health data controller.
I don't know if it's even worth doing this, but consumer is 2022 plus little minor updates from Connecticut 2025. So they updated from nonprofit to nonprofit organization in the definition of consumer B, and in 9 they added or status in 2025. I just want to be transparent about that. It's not going to match what came from the Ask Pathway Center.
Okay, consumer health data controller. Consumer reporting agency is a cross-reference to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. A controller.
And consumer reporting agency was made for specifically for Vermont for exemptions that we made. So
Questions about the controller definition? COPA is a cross-reference to the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, including any regulations, rules adopted pursuant to that act. Covered entity is a cross-reference to HIPAA. Credit union is a cross-reference to the Vermont definition.
unique to Vermont exceptions.
Dark pattern, credit union did that one. Dark pattern, I think Kids Code has this, but again, it's a user interface designed or manipulated with the substantial effect of subverting or impairing user autonomy. And then includes any practice the FTC refers to as a dark pattern. 17, decisions that produce legal or similarly significant effects concerning the consumer.
This is not in Connecticut 2022 or as passed by Senate. This is Connecticut 2025.
Okay, I think we've come to the end of our. payroll, but it's fine.
I just apologize on the record to MMR and Matt because I didn't realize that that was not their client, so I apologize.
So we should mark that where we stop.
Yep.
Thank you again. Do you have any place to be now for 12?
No.
So we have to look at 98. I don't think it's gonna take us an hour, so maybe we can have you.
Yeah, I'll be nearby. Jonathan, if you can message me, maybe. Okay.
Thankfully. So everybody else is sitting on the sidelines on that 7-1. We're dealing with S198 right now. I don't think it's gonna take us an hour, so we'll come back to S71 again. Probably within 30 minutes. And if you want to join us, then Jen will we'll just get the flavor of the changes they made, and then we'll have you walk us through those changes.
I'm sorry. It's on, let's go. Hey.
Flavor. There was another cloud of it. That must be just joke. jokingly.
Well, I heard you and I think a little different than what else.
Representative Noyes, thank you for coming in.
Much.
Committee, we're just switching gears here because that's 198. The tobacco bill is on the floor this afternoon. It started here and then went to Human Services. So Human Services has a strike all amendment. So Representative Noyes, I think, is their reporters. You could give us an idea of the 4 instances of amendment. That actually it's a strike all, but there's 4 different changes.
About 4 different, yeah, there's a few other little language changes that I'm sure they'll run through. And for the record, Dan Noyes, Woolgate, Vermont. Thanks for having me today. So obviously, Human Services Committee is really looking at how do we help youth not use these products. You know, and what our main interest obviously is to keep people healthy, population health. Looking at that is kind of in our purview up in the committee. And we know that these products are addicting and many youth start using them very early. It's kind of hard to stop, along with smoking. Could be, you know, the vapes or nicotine pouches like Zyn or whatever. So the idea is to people that are caught using these products in school, young people. In the past, we tried to give them a fine, but what we thought would be probably better is to maybe see if they wanted to participate in tobacco cessation programs to be able to help them stop using this product, or community service, because the money's not going to come from them typically as a young person. So we tried to, look at how we can help youth not use this product should they get caught with it in school or as a young person. We also spoke about how municipalities interact with the department, and we basically said that Department of Liquor Control can issue a retail tobacco license after the municipality. So they have to get a municipal license, and we just said that should probably go first. And then once they have their kind of local permits taken care of, then they could go to liquor control. Just how that, not an expectation that once they got one, they get the other. So we also wanted to understand how liquor and lottery would be, they're doing their enforcement actions. So we're interested in like how many complaints they received, how many penalties imposed, just kind of give us some feedback on how they're implementing and making sure that these products are kept out of the hands of young people. And then, so we wanted some information back from the department. And, what should we probably be doing in the future to make sure that minors, the sales to minors, and what legislative work we could do. So mostly around policy there. And then we also were interested in, this is the last part of it, what staffing requirements were needed to be able to do the enforcement. Through both the AG's office or the department's office, do you have enough staff? So just report back to us. Doesn't include any staff. It just says, hey, are you able to keep up with the wholesale, checking in on who's selling these products to Vermont, and also at the retail level, are the children, are we, making sure people aren't buying these products who are underage. And that's pretty much it. There's a few other things I'm sure you'll hear about around just language pieces, individual versus person and stuff like that. So, but those are kind of the overarching goals, as I'm sure you heard when you were taking testimony, and we did as well, about some of these products really targeting young people, with these games that they play. And if you take a vape, you get some advantage, or it pulls in Instagram photos every time that they use the product. So just like those are really specifically marketed towards young people and how do we keep them out of the hands? So, I mean, I think collectively we've done that work to make sure the department has the ability to not, to change with different products coming in, instead of coming back to us every time. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
One of the things that has been a concern of mine from the beginning of this is enforcement on minors who are caught.
Yeah,
When the bill left here, there was no penalty. So if a police officer caught an underage minor using a vape, there's nothing they could do. Has that changed?
yeah. So what we said was, an individual, because the money is not gonna come from a young person. So we said, that individual would be required to either participate in tobacco cessation programs. So get them help to say, here's some 802 quits type stuff, right? Or community service. Do community service.
Can we clarify?
Oh, yes, please.
That's only for using the fake ID. That's
Correct.
only for purchasing using
Oh,
fake ID.
okay, yes,
Possession does not. have
correct.
a-
Okay. If they're caught using a fake ID to purchase it, that's
That's
Okay.
when you got rid of the.
Thank you for that
monthly penalty and put
clarification.
in, yes, the
Yeah.
trust for the community service and cessation.
okay.
But we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that I may or may not have done some things underage, and I may have been caught by a police officer who took it away from me, and that
Right.
had a massive impact on my life. And to not see that in the bill really
Right.
bothers me.
And I think they can confiscate it.
Conversation is fine.
Is
Okay.
back in. Yeah, they
Okay.
can take it.
That's
and-
important.
Yes, that is in
As
there.
long as they can confiscate it, because
Mhm.
the way
They
they were
can.
talking about it when I last saw it, there's
Yeah.
nothing they could do.
No, they can take it.
Okay.
No, I do tell me.
Mayor, question, this might be a Jen question, but under other tobacco products, it talks about not including nicotine pouches.
And I think that's under
a
new
Very
to,
specific tax issue that I will address when we talk about it.
yeah. Those are captured under new.
Yes, but they're still in the definition for enforcement purposes in Title 7. Acts uses different definitions and you need to be untangled, but in the short term, they're captured in a different tax category.
Thank you.
The question for Representative Williams. On a higher level, the specific issues in the language we'll get through. Okay, Dan, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning, Jen Carvey from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So I have provided, and Jonathan's posted on your website, a markup version showing what you voted out of here marked up with what Human Services did differently. There's a strike all amendment. So I'll put that up on the screen, and if you'd like, and walk you through that. Okay, so just like when we did the way I do markups with bold and highlighting and striking through, that's what you'll see on here. So all of the markup is based on changes that Human Services made to what was voted out of this committee. So we start out with definitions. So in tobacco substitute, they didn't make any changes to that, but it does specifically, I just wanted to point out, Representative Karis Duncan, it does still on top of page 2 include nicotine pouches in the definition of tobacco substitute. Really a terminology question between the two chapters right now. There are some changes in the definition of wholesale dealers, recognizing, as I recognized between here and the committee upstairs, that the term differences in terminology between defined terms in Title 7, tobacco product, where we have tobacco product regulation, and Title 32, where we have taxation of tobacco products, means we need to use consistent terminology for where the language is landing. So in the wholesale dealer definition, All of these items fall into what are called tobacco products, or adding in tobacco substitutes. So the other tobacco product, for example, definition in Title 32 is where tobacco substitutes live. So this is not a substantive change between this committee and the committee upstairs in these definitions, but just recognizing that the wholesale dealer language, when it lands in Title 7, needs to use Title 7 terms. And I will preview for you that part of what we're going to be talking about as we go through here is the difference in the definitions, and that the various parties are aware, the Tax Department, Department of Liquor and Lottery, Attorney General's office, that this is something we need to address over the summer and come back with hopefully some more streamlined definitions that will be consistent between the two. But we didn't want to break anything in the tax or regulation space while trying to make the substantive changes you're looking to make. So you'll see these changes to the definitions in all three places that listed a bunch of products are now using the Title 7 broader terms of tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. We get into the licensure for retail sale and some of what, so you had done some work in here, kind of separating out the tobacco licenses and the liquor licenses. Some additional work was done upstairs, really trying to clarify the process, the existing process, and capture existing practice in statute for how these applications work. So for a license or endorsement, so tobacco license or tobacco substitute endorsement required under this section, it does still work that the person applies to the legislative body of the municipality, but in practice, they use an application provided by the Board of Liquor and Lottery. And then Liquor and Lottery provides the relevant information to the municipality. So that is reflected here. And so no changes to the fees as they left this committee, but also reflecting, again, that the kind of divide in the process. The municipal clerk forwards the application that they receive from the Board of Liquor and Lottery back to the Division of Liquor Control. And if the municipality's local control commissioners have approved the application for a tobacco license, and if applicable, a tobacco substitute endorsement, then the Division of Liquor Control would issue the license and the endorsement as applicable. So again, reflecting that there is still this local control aspect where the municipality gets to decide whether a tobacco license and a tobacco substitute endorsement should be issued. But the actual licensure part still happens at the Division of Liquor Control.
The funds, the license and the fee, is that still flowing through DLL and then to the municipality?
Yes. So, right. So you'd had, I think, in here some cleanup language about where the money flows, and I'm still learning the various pieces of it, but it sounds like some of it stays with Liquor Control, some of it goes to the municipality. And so that this is not changed. And this language I've worked out with Liquor and Lottery.
Used to be, we had to send our licenses to the municipality along with the fee, and then they would forward.
Yeah.
Exactly.
State's fee. I think it's reversed now, where the state gets, DLL now forwards the money to the municipality.
Right. So you'll see some of the language that had been struck even in the version we looked at was having the municipality forward all the fees to the commissioner for deposit. Now it's reflecting the reality that with electronic payments, everything is happening electronically and going through the division. But I think that piece that still goes, that has been going to the municipality, still goes to the municipality.
Quick question. I'm just curious if the committee heard from DLL about how that would affect their system.
This is
My portal.
reflecting this is their requested language to reflect what they actually do.
Oh, from DLL.
This is from DLL.
Oh, okay, great. So in terms of the going to the municipality first and then coming, so DLL.
Right. I'm sorry, we don't have DLL in the room. But yes, this was reflecting,
Yeah, that's all.
yes, that they use the application that is provided by the Board of Liquor and Lottery. And the fees go to the Division of Liquor Control. And then the division only issues the license if the local control commissioners have said yes,
Got it.
and the fees still go into the same fund, but it does not affect the distribution that they do now.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, and then they didn't make any changes to the rest of this, no changes to the wholesaler. Now we get to 1005, which is the individuals, the minors, individuals under 21 years of age. And cleaning up a little bit the section heading, so it would now, reflecting what's in the bill, as it came out of Human Services, say individuals under 21 years of age. I think possession comes back in. Possession or purchase of tobacco products prohibited, penalty for misrepresenting age or misrepresenting age. I think that's it. Let me just confirm that I having the word possession. Yes, possession is not struck. I just forgot to unstrike it. So this is putting back in, just with the changes from person under 21 years of age to individual, putting back into the existing statute instead of it being struck through, the prohibition on anyone under 21 years of age possessing, purchasing, or attempting to purchase tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia, unless they're possessing them in the course of their employment in order to make a sale, or they are in possession in connection with indigenous cultural tobacco practices. It also keeps the prohibition on misrepresenting age to purchase or attempt to purchase these items, and puts back the language saying that they are subject to immediate confiscation, but continuing to strike the civil penalty of $25 brought through the traffic, the Judicial Bureau like a traffic ticket. And then here's the part we're also talking about with misrepresenting. If somebody misrepresents their age by presenting false identification to purchase these items, this would strike out, as it came out of this committee, it would have, it had a penalty that the maximum increased from $50 to $100. And that's what you got from the Senate as well. This would strike the penalty and instead say that that person would be offered the choice of providing up to 10 hours of community service or participating in a nationally recognized youth tobacco cessation program to be determined by the Department of Health. And that would be brought through the Judicial Bureau like a traffic ticket.
Did they take any testimony as to the youth that was caught multiple times? How we deal with that?
I don't believe there was discussion on that. I think there was, significant concern that you had heard some in here as well about civil penalties. But no, just the confiscation language. I don't believe there was, I'll look for this stakeholders who are around the room.
I guess the hope is that they wouldn't try to get another fake ID, but they got it once.
Right. I mean, with the fake ID piece, this is the maximum is 10 hours of community service or participating in the program. I think the hope would be either the cessation program, if they did it, would work, or they would end up doing the 10 hours of, or a higher amount of up to 10 hours.
Well, I'm just wondering if they choose the cessation program, and if that doesn't work for them, and they still are trying to get tobacco products, get another fake ID, are we gonna go through another cessation program?
I think with the language that is possible. I mean, there is not, and they're not
Ultimately,
escalating or.
choose that over the Senate. I think there should be some thought.
Yes. And there's the potential, I mean, that I'm not sure if programs have been identified yet. This is, to some extent to give flexibility to the Department of Health to identify programs, but perhaps there are some that have, stricter processes or longer processes for somebody who has been a multiple offender.
Sure, yeah, so there'll be rulemaking, I'm sure, by Department of Health.
Does not require rulemaking. It requires the department to identify a program. What that would look like, we would need to hear from the department.
If the program is more stringent than 10 hours of community service.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the stakeholders have knowledge of what the programs look like. Going? Okay. So section 1007, they did not make changes to the penalty provisions, no changes to that section, no changes to the contraband and seizure, except, nope, it's 1010. I keep forgetting where yours comes in. No changes to internet sales, except to add the language. So I just put it this way. This is the language that this committee had recommended. So it's new to the bill, but it's the language that this committee recommended around the annual reporting from the Department of Liquor and Lottery and Office of Attorney General on enforcement. And it went in, I believe it went in verbatim, so. Then no changes on the deceptive devices. In here. The next changes come in the definitions and the tax statute. So now we're in section 5. We are in the Title 32 in the tax statutes, tobacco taxes. And the change here is the one Representative Paris Duncan noted that carves out nicotine pouches from the definition of other tobacco products. The definition of other tobacco products largely tracks or largely includes the tobacco substitute definition from Title VII. But under existing law, new smokeless tobacco, which has now been added as added in from existing statute and amended, is where the Department of Taxes has captured nicotine pouches. And so they are taxing them not under the other tobacco products tax sort of catch-all, but more specifically by taxing new smokeless tobacco. And so the Department of Taxes did not want to move nicotine pouches from their new smokeless tobacco definition to tobacco substitutes. So that's why we carved it out of the tobacco substitute definition where it says under other tobacco products, the term includes products sold as a tobacco substitute. We added, but not including nicotine pouches, and not trying to capture some of these other items that are being treated differently under tax law, but specifying to make sure that they are still being taxed and still being taxed the way they are currently being taxed, that they are included under new smokeless tobacco. And then, as I said, the definitions are ripe for revisiting and an overhaul. My vision would be that they would be fully defined in Title VII and incorporated by reference to the Title VII definitions in Title 32.
Just a wording question. Page 20, lines 8 and 9.
Yes.
That's intended for human consumption by smoking, chewing. Some things in any other manner. Is still there.
In any other manner is still there. We did not carry through some of this additional language that was added in the Title VII tobacco substitute definition, but didn't want to foreclose it to allow tax to continue to administer the tax laws as they currently do.
We need the word or.
Smoking, chewing,
Oh.
or any other.
See if yes, so it's not in the bill. So what I'm trying to show you is what's
Oh, okay.
in the bill. So some of this is just my own.
Oh.
I think it's fine in the bill itself. This is just me trying to show you in the markup. Yeah, so it does in the actual bill, it does just continue with smoking, chewing, or in any other manner.
Okay.
And then it strikes out including and says except as otherwise specified. So I just was overly ambitious with the strike through, so apology. All right.
Editors everywhere.
Luckily, it's all I really care about is it's the right. I'm trying not to create confusion for you, so apologies for that. All right, no changes to the rest of the cleanup stuff to accomplish the wholesalers moving over to tax in 2027. There is a new section on tobacco enforcement capacity. Starts out with a general finding that regulation of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, and deceptive devices as added by this act is a significant public health priority, especially for protecting individuals under 21 years of age from being targeted or supplied with these products. And it requires the Department of Liquor and Lottery, in consultation with the Office of Attorney General, to evaluate and report to this committee, the Human Services Committee, and your Senate counterparts on the following: the number of compliance checks that the department conducted in fiscal years 25 and 26 with respect to tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. We don't include the deceptive devices because they haven't been prohibited yet. whether the department's current enforcement staffing levels are sufficient to meet the compliance targets established in existing law, that's the 90% compliance for purchasers between 17 and 20, and to adequately enforce the tobacco chapter as amended by this act, including the prohibition on deceptive devices, restriction on internet sales, and expanded wholesale licensure requirements. Any unmet enforcement needs identified as a result of the expanded scope of regulation under this act, and whether additional staffing resources at the Department of Liquor and Lottery or the Attorney General's office or both would materially improve compliance with and enforcement of Vermont's tobacco laws. I think you've heard some of the difference in opinion between the department and the Office of the Attorney General about whether a new investigator position is warranted. And so this is asking for some information and recommendations from those entities about whether they need more tobacco enforcement capacity. Section 11 is the taxation of tobacco substitutes and tobacco stamps study and report. They did not make any changes to that, and they did not make any changes to the effective dates. That's where we are.
Questions? Okay. Anyone need any more information from anyone sitting on the sidelines? On that last.
Yeah, like there will be another amendment on this coming. We'll get it tomorrow, and it's changing the responsibility of the report from Department of Tax to the AG's office. So just giving everyone a heads up that that's coming.
From us.
From
Ways and
Ways and Means.
From Ways and Means, gotcha, thank you.
We'll do this again tomorrow.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
I think we could probably. It's gonna change from tax, but we
I
could.
think it's right. It changes some of the, I think the proposal, and I don't know if you want to hear from the Attorney General's office because they're the proposers of the amendment changes some of the substance of the report as well, not just who is.
We hear that. Are they making the change today? Are they hearing testimony today?
Don't believe so. I was only informed of it when you all at the head of the table were, so I don't know what the expected time is.
Figure a time to bring you back in, bring the AG's office in as well. So on this strike all amendment, Human Services is proposing, are there any further questions by the committee? If not, I would. All those in favor of accepting the changes to strike all amendment, finding favorably the strike all amendment to S-198 as proposed by Human Services, raise your hand. All opposed, so 11-0 to find it favorable. Jen, thank you very much. Thank you. Dee will report on the floors of that afternoon. You let Rick in there? Yeah. Ready to. Stay on that.
He's getting concerned more than what I got. I'm just saying.
No.
I'm gonna stay online until Rick gets here, so everybody knows. That's right.
Which one of you is rubbing off the other? But
It's also the Southern Vermont thing we got going on here, you know.
he does.
Live, which means that you know the rules, and so do I.
went back and found the weekly call came in organizing and always all of our base,
With what?
all of our lobbyists, I mean, along with the Nike and Relic, and Meta, TikTok and Verizon and Netflix.
Oh, Rick,
Hi, you're live, okay?
or is it memorized?
Commercial.
I vaguely.
And these have these things called cassette tape.
Yes, yes. Red Nicholas, I am not that young.
You can fake it.
I probably could. I probably could.
So Rick comes in and the committee leaves.
Not personal.
I'm not very nice.
You got.
I should be nicer.
Good actors here.
Still alive, so I'm debating whether or not we should go off live until I get committee back in.
Got a quorum.
Now I got a quorum, but I need those other people who listen to this stuff.